The American people deserve to know. And from this day forward, they will.
Mr. President.
The Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, I would say to the Republican leader while still on the floor, would you entertain a question? I'm sorry that he did not stay for a question, because I would have asked the basic question raised by Senator Schumer. Does he really believe that there is no evidence of voter suppression in the actions of 19 states across our nation? I think the facts speak for themselves.
After Georgia's Republican Secretary of State refused to buckle to President Trump's demand to find somehow another 11,000 votes, you remember the phone call? I'm not making it up. You heard it with your own ears. He called him up. He said, find 11,000 votes. And the guy said, no, I'm not going to do that. And now the legislature has removed him from the state election board. So this isn't just about making it harder for people to vote, although it is making it harder for people to vote. This is shoring up the soft spots that prevented Donald Trump from being able to assert credibly that somehow the election had been stolen from him. So 1 year after January 6th happened, 1 year after this Capitol was invaded, 1 year after there was a guy in horns standing up on the top of that gallery behind me, the majority leader who once came to this floor to proclaim the importance of the Voting Rights Act is saying that this is all a fake panic.
Many of you have looked down the hall and seen in front of Senator McConnell's office, you've seen the lobbyists lined up who always seem to get what they come for. Workers don't have corporate lobbyists. They aren't going on campaign donor retreats. But workers have the vote, or should have the vote. The voting booth is where all of us are supposed to have an equal voice. The voting booth is where workers are supposed to be able to go to hold the wealthy and the powerful accountable. So it's not surprising that politicians who pass corporate tax cuts, the same politicians who do the handouts to the wealthiest 1%, don't want lots of workers to vote. We know who voter suppression and election subversion is aimed at. It's at the parents working 2 jobs to pay the rent and make sure their kids have a decent meal with no control over their work lives and their work hours if they don't have a collective bargaining agreement. It's students, it's people who don't get a day off, it's seniors in nursing homes, it's home health care workers who care for them. So often these are women of color working the graveyard shift after coming straight from their second job. We know whose votes these politicians want to throw out after they're cast. We know which cities the former president went after. What does Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, Senator Casey, and Atlanta, Georgia, Senator Ossoff and Warnock, what do they have in common? They're diverse places with a whole lot of black and brown workers who cast ballots that the rich and powerful don't like. Ultimately, as others have said, it comes down to this. These politicians want to cherry pick their voters rather than the voters picking their elected officials. If you say you support American workers, you support their right to vote. I ask my colleagues of both parties come together to protect the right of every American to have a voice in this country, no matter who you are, no matter where you work, no matter where you live.
Congress may at any time by law make or alter such regulations. At any time. If not after the Supreme Court cuts the heart out of the Voting Rights Act, when? If not after an avalanche of state legislation carving back voting rights, when? If not after a violent attack unprecedented in the history of this country on the Capitol of the United States to disenfranchise 80 million people and disrupt the peaceful transfer of power, when? If not after subsequent big lies leading to action in state legislatures all over this country, when? We may act to protect federal elections at any time. We are here for such a time, and the time to act is now.
Let's remember, these voter suppression laws are all being passed mainly on a partisan basis with simple majorities. Now, some have suggested that if we believe these laws are unconstitutional, we should fight them in the courts. Take our arguments all the way to the Supreme Court. But remember, there are 3 Supreme Court justices, all appointed by a simple majority of this Senate without the filibuster. So let's recap. Republicans want to appoint judges without a filibuster standing in their way. They want Republican state lawmakers to be able to pass voter suppression laws without a filibuster. But Democrats can't protect the basic right to vote on a simple majority. That's what we're talking about here today. Making Election Day a federal holiday, making sure everyone can vote by mail, ending gerrymandering so voters can pick their politicians and not the other way around. These are simple, straightforward reforms with tremendous significance for our country's future as a democracy.
And amazingly enough, my colleagues, none of them are here to hear it, our Republican colleagues don't even acknowledge that we have a crisis. Leader McConnell even claimed, quote, states are not engaged in trying to suppress voters whatsoever. I would ask the Republican leader, if there's no effort to suppress the vote, why have 19 states passed 33 new laws making it harder for Americans to participate in our elections? If there's no effort to suppress the vote, why are states from Texas to Montana restricting the number and hours of polling places? Why have states like Florida and Texas made it harder to register to vote? Is that not suppressing the vote? Why are states like Iowa cutting down on the number of days you can vote early? Is that not suppressing the vote? And if there's no effort to suppress the vote, why have states like Georgia made it a crime for volunteers to give food and water to voters standing in line at the polls? Leader McConnell, once again, quote, states are not engaging in trying to suppress voters whatsoever. Just as Donald Trump has his big lie, Leader McConnell now has his.